copies while they last. Stop the presses.
And now for something completely different.
There's no business like show business. Are we not entertained? Prepare yourself for a little sensory overload. Stand by to roll show intro. Roll show intro in 3, 2, 1, go.
It's showtime! The Craig L. Hayes Show.
Hello, America, family, friends, and listeners all around this planet we call home. This is Craig L. Hayes on It's Showtime, the Craig L. Hayes Show. And we're glad to have you here on this 16th of April, 2026. And this show is on the road today, where we usually do a lot of our shows from the Westgate in Elvis Presley's dressing room. We're taking it on the road. And I say that like we're going a long ways out of town or something like that, but we're actually just going a few miles away from the Westgate to visit a friend that I've known for quite a few years. And I've worked for her, and I've worked for her family and with her family on a lot of the shows and such that were going on around town. And I can't tell you how much stuff I've bought from your company. And you got to put the plugs in there whenever you can, And a long time ago, they came to Vegas, and she's going to tell us about her life, her family's life, how her dad came here. He came from New York and on Broadway, and then came to Vegas and started up a business called Cinema Services. It supplied so much of the lighting equipment and such that the hotels all used in town. So she's got a lot to tell us. So let's let her get started on her life and her life in show business. And her name is Barbara Brennan. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Craig, thank you so much. It is so great to be here. And I really appreciate you bringing your show over to me instead of me having to go to you. So that is good. I guess the first thing is to talk about how we came to Las Vegas.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your upbringing.
Okay.
Where you came from, how your dad decided to move to Vegas, and then drug the family with him.
That is a good word you used too. Drug is the operative word. Well, actually, my father had been out here a couple of times because he had been working on shows. Actually, when they brought Mame to Caesar's Palace, after Caesar's Palace opened, he came out here and he decided that he wanted to move here because he realized that there was, if you remember back in the 70s, Broadway kind of really took a hit and they were not doing a lot of shows and things. And he saw the writing on the wall that maybe it was going downhill. So he decided to take his family west, go west, young man, except he wasn't really a young man. At that point, there were 5 of us and my mom, 5 kids and my mom, which also my mom was not really excited about coming out here. Plus, I will tell you, I went to a Catholic high school when I was back east, when I went to school, because I was in high school when we moved out here. And when I told the nuns that I was moving to Las Vegas, they had a heart attack. And I would walk down the hallway and one would pull me aside. Now, you behave yourself when you're there, when you move to Las Vegas. You need to make us proud. And that was happening all over the place. And I was like, oh my God, where am I going? So anyway, my dad was doing Mame in Los Angeles. And while he was doing that, my mom was packing up the house and we were with her getting everything ready to come to Vegas. So we got everything done with the house. She sold the house. We put everything in a truck and then we flew out. And I remember us coming here and we're getting off the plane. And at that time, like when America West Airlines landed, you would walk down the gate, like the gateway, I think they call it, or whatever. I was going to say gangplank, but it wasn't that. But anyway, I remember walking out the door and the heat absolutely took my breath away. I felt like I had walked into the middle of an oven. And I was thinking as a kid, where the heck are we doing here? I am sorry. Anyway, I'm like, what are we doing? I don't know where we are, And so we came here and my dad had bought a house out in Winterwood which is all the way out at the end of Nellis and Sahara, which at that point my mother thought was the end of the world. And she was really ready to kill him, I think, without saying it any nicer than anything. But so we lived out there for a while. We had one truck, and so the kids, we would sit in the back of the truck when a bunch of us were going someplace, you know. And then my dad, he had met a man by the name of Danny Saris from San Francisco, and they decided to form a partnership. And so they had Cinema Services Company in San Francisco, and they created Cinema Services of Las Vegas here in Las Vegas. And so my dad was the one that was going to run the company here. So I was the oldest. I was in high school. Seamus had just started high school. Billy and Monica were in grammar school, and then Timothy was he was a little baby. He wasn't in school yet. But Monica and Billy actually went to school at St. Peter's. I don't know if you remember, there was a St. Peter's Catholic school out in Henderson. So my mother would take Seamus and I to Gorman and then drive all the way out to Henderson and drop them off to school. And then in the afternoon, she would make the same runaround. You know, except Seamus and I, we would walk down Oakey, like heading down towards Boulder Highway. And so she would pick us up wherever we were by the time she got there, after picking up Billy and Monica. So it was really quite an interesting time. She was not loving it very much, but we were doing okay. I went to high school at Gorman, and I finished there, graduated. And I had applied to a lot of different colleges and had got accepted at Catholic U and University of Hawaii and Santa Clara, but I ended up going here because the thing was, well, first of all, it was cost effective, but it was a good school. I did very well there, and I really enjoyed it, you know, and so that was pretty good, living there. And then
That was at UNLV?
yes, UNLV. I
Nice.
went to UNLV.
Can I back just a second?
Sure.
What year did you guys move here?
Oh God, that is really important, isn't it? We moved here in 1968, September of 1968.
Okay.
So we consider ourselves almost natives at this point. When we came here, I think there were around 250,000 people in Las Vegas. That was it. And I mean, everything was really spread out, but you could get anywhere, usually within 15, 20 minutes, not like today, where it is like craziness when you get on the road.
Yes. There's almost 3 million here now, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's big time difference. Yeah.
So,
Anyways, continue.
Yeah,
Sorry,
so-
I
so
didn't
my-
hear the date. I just wanted
oh
to make sure
no,
we
I
had the
know.
date.
I should have said that.
No,
I
that's-
didn't.
we're good, we're
You
good.
Just say, listen, Barbara, go back. Tell me what you need.
I'll do that.
Okay, so anyway, my dad had started Cinema Services, so during the day he was working at Cinema Services, and then he worked at the Dunes as a stagehand at night, so he was really doing two jobs, you know?
Typical stagehand.
Yes, he was doing everything he could, and you know, and getting the business going forward. And then at the same time, my mom, who was, she was an actress. Actually, they met on the road. They were touring in a show, and he met my mom, and that is how they got married. It is really like a Turner Classic Movies film. So they met and they got married. But she went and she auditioned for Romper Room for like the Miss. Well, she became Miss June. Actually, she got the role, and she was Miss June at KLAS for like 4 years.
Wow.
So she was doing that, it was really funny. She got that when I finished 2 years in high school, graduated in 1970, and then started UNLV. So she was working Romper Room then. I used to help her answer all the mail, you know, and then actually when I went to school and I was living in the dorm, and, you know, I was talking about my mom, and I told the football players that my mother was Miss June, and so they all went to the Playboy magazine. They were looking for Miss June, and I'm like, no.
Wrong Miss June.
No, she is on Romper Room. She is not on Playboy. It was really funny. So then I came home from a football game one night, and there was a big sign on my door that said, if you want to be seen through the magic mirror, sign here. So all these people had signed up. So I gave my mom the list and said, you have to see all these people in the magic mirror because everybody in college is watching you on television. So while she is off doing that, my dad is working really hard, the dunes, and then he worked on the beginning of the building and the opening of the Las Vegas Hilton. And he was in there, and he did a lot of shows for them and worked in there as a stagehand as well.
Wow.
You
And
know,
I spent all those years there too, so that's cool.
so you know what it is like, yeah.
Oh, I was there for 30 years. Yeah.
That is a long time. Well, and it's funny because even my brothers ended up there down the line. They were spotlight operators. It was like how they got their introduction to the business, you know, by working in there. But so meanwhile, while all of this is happening, my father is still creating cinema services and looking for business. We started renting equipment to people and selling them the light bulbs and gel and anything that would possibly need. Well, he was doing it. I was in high school and college. I mean, I wasn't really paying that much attention. But what happened is it got to the point that he was doing so much work, he wasn't sending out the bills because it's like he didn't have the time between being a stagehand and working at the office during the day and getting equipment ready to go out the door. None of the bills were getting done. So then I got in there and I started typing all of that. Is how I got my first job at Cinema Services. As I got in there and I was typing invoices to bring everything up to date, to make sure that everything got billed. And
So you kind of saved the business, because if the business wasn't getting paid by all the bills, it was
no, I had to do that. And I was answering the phone and taking orders and things. But I got to the place where I was embarrassed when people would ask me a question and I didn't have the answer. So I started reading all the catalogs, like, Sylvania lamps and Mo Richardson lighting fixtures and Altman catalog. I would just read the catalogs and start learning things. Even though when I was going to college, I was a theater major, but you start a lot of, I wanted to be an actress, but I still do a little of that, but that is what I started out doing. And of course you had to take tech classes, and I was learning things, but not quickly enough for what was happening in the business. So that is why I started reading the catalogs. So that way when people called, I could answer the questions and everything like that. The thing I hated the worst of all, though, was, do you remember back then when they had gel, it really was gel, whether it was Ross Scalene or it was Mo Richardson Brigham, and during the summer, it would just all get stuck together.
Yeah.
And somebody's like, well, I want 50 sheets, and I'm like, oh no. So, but I was doing all of that. I was doing sales and typing the invoices and answering the phone, and I really liked it a lot. I really learned a lot. And then one by one, my brothers got introduced in to help pull equipment and things like that. And you would think that I would maybe not have to do that, but my brother Seamus would be like, you need to come out here and help. So I would still keep pulling equipment, which is good because I learned more about the equipment, how a Leica works and how a Fresnel works and the difference between stage lighting and television lighting. So it was all good, I know, but it was probably a little bit strange for maybe even a girl at that time to be doing things, but I kept doing it anyway because I had so much respect for my dad, because Jimmy Brennan, that is how everybody knew him, and he was a mentor to me, and he was my idol because he just was really a fantastic human being. I know I'm probably a little bit prejudiced, but that is how I feel about him.
That's okay.
I hope I am making sense of kind of how
this
things
is
are
interesting.
going along.
This is interesting. I didn't realize all this stuff here on your background and how you got into the business, but now it makes total sense.
Yeah, I really started from the ground up, and well, for my dad, the most important thing he taught me was get the money. That is the first thing that you have to learn when you are in business. You have to get the money. So, however you learn to do it, how diplomatic you can be, that is the most important thing, you know. And then also the thing that he told me, you probably would understand this too because your family had a company, is that he said, you know, they can buy equipment anywhere, but if you give them the service and help them and you know, give them advice and give them the things that they want, they will always come back to you. And he was right. You know, so we were taught to take care of people, and I think that made a big difference in what we were doing too, you know. But we were very proud of Cinema Services. And it went on for a very long time. I think of all the shows and everything that we did. I mean, that is another part of the story, actually, because I should go back a little bit. So I finished college, and when I was at college even, I took a summer off from working for him for Cinema Services, and I went to England to study theater. So I went to RADA for a summer and had training in acting and stage combat and everything. It was really great. And then I came back home to Vegas and decided that when I graduated from college that I was going to go into the business and work for him. So it was good. But we did have, how do I say this? We did have a little, very interesting discussion, because what was happening was my brothers were getting to go and do all the jobs on the outside while I was taking care of everything in the office. And I told my dad I had to have a meeting with him. And I told him, if you are going to make me stay here all the time, then I am not going to stay here. I'm going to go do something else. I want to be able to go out and work on shows too and be able to learn things. I said, I know how to do things here. I want to be able to go out there and learn more about the business. And so he agreed. So I started going out, you know, like as a, almost like a production manager for like when we're doing shows and maybe wrangling the equipment. And also because we ended up with a contract with the Stagehands Union, so we would hire union crews, hence that's why you were working for us. And so working on the payroll as far as the sheets and getting approvals and then billing and then putting the checks together and getting everybody paid as well. It was pretty complicated, you know, but it was really, I was really proud of the work that we did and the shows that we did, which we can talk a little bit down the line about things that we did. I mean, I know, it is almost, I start to think about the things I have done, and honestly, I think I have forgotten more than I remember of the shows that we worked on, because something will happen and I will go, oh, yeah, we did that too, you know? So it's pretty amazing. I think it is a really good, it was a good business, and I actually really loved living in Las Vegas. After we had been here for a while, and you get used to the desert and everything and how beautiful it is, and we would go out to Red Rock and go hiking and hike up to the top of Mount Charleston. I've done that too a couple of times, up and back. And then we would go to Utah and go skiing first in Brian Head and then up in Alta.
Snowbird, Alta,
yeah. I mean, it was just, it was a great life. I mean, and then we would also go down to the ocean in Laguna Beach, you know, at the time, and we would stay down there. I mean, I was really like, wow, this is much better than living back east. That is why I have never gone back, because this is the place. The West is the best.
It really is, isn't it? I mean, it's, yeah, like you say, you can live here in Vegas, go out to the desert, but within 30, 40 minutes, you can be up in the mountains, up in the pine trees. You can be on Red Rock. You can be out at Lake Mead. You could, yeah. It's
yeah, like we had a pontoon boat.
Oh, did you?
We used to go out to Lake Mead all the time. I mean, we got caught in storms. We would go out there and on the 4th of July and do fireworks and everything. It was great out there. A little bit different, I think, for what it is now. But it is, yeah. We really became outdoor people. We did not realize how much we loved it. And so, hence my brother skiing and mountain climbing and everything like that too. And Billy was a sailor. He had his own sailboat. I mean, it is really cool. I mean, this is a great place to live. And I know people look at that, I go back to what the nuns said, and they do not even had one inkling of what it was going to be to come and live out here. I think it was very foresightful of my dad to say, okay, we are moving there. It was the right thing to do, absolutely.
Yeah, you're probably like me. I get really, I mean, I understand the terminology, but I get kind of annoyed when people call this Sin City.
Yeah.
Because
When I
it's not any different than any other place. I mean, everything you can find here, you can find in any town in the United States or the world, except one thing: the number of big shows we have going on in the hotels.
Exactly. I went, like I told you, I went to England to study, and people would look at me and go, "You're from Las Vegas."
Yeah.
And so what I started doing was telling them that my dad was a pit boss, my mother was a showgirl, and I was born under a crap table in Caesar's palace. I didn't know.
And they
how
don't
to
know
keep
any
my
better.
mouth-
They're
No,
like,
they would
really?
look at- yeah, absolutely. They would look at me, go, really? That is. I go, oh yeah, I was born under the crap table. It was like, and they would believe it, hook, line, and sinker.
Oh man,
It
you
is
got
hilarious.
them.
I
You got
know.
them hooked.
It was really funny because I would say things like, and then they would say like, "You live in Las Vegas?" And I said, "No, actually, I live in L.A. and commute every week." I do not understand. It was such a Las Vegas was such. It had such a mystique about it.
Yeah.
And when you live here, you're like, yeah, but when you live here, you do all the things on the outside, but you really, other than work, I mean, I told people I would know all the back entrances to all the hotels and to the stages. I never went in the front door.
Yeah.
I always go in the back door because that was work, but then the city was something completely different.
Yeah, back then it was completely different. And
Mm-hmm.
in the 60s and 70s, it was and then the corporations started taking over in
I
the
know.
70s.
It was almost. I know you. I don't know if it's okay to say this, but there was a part when the mafia was here that it was really better because when you everything was a even though maybe you didn't know that's who you were working with, but it was a handshake agreement. If you said you were going to do something, you did it.
Well, just before we finish this episode, you're going to read in the book that I gave you about Grandpa negotiating the first stagehand contract with Bugsy Siegel.
Oh my God, that would have to be really amazing.
Yeah. So that tells you how the town was. That was back in 1946.
Yeah.
Okay. And he always told me growing up, he had no problem whatsoever dealing with the mob guys that were running the hotels because a handshake on any contract, it was done.
That my dad said the same thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. When you had a deal, you had a deal.
Exactly. Not a team of lawyers and stuff like this that you had to negotiate and write down, okay, what is the meaning of $2 or whatever? It's none of that. It was a handshake, done.
And there was even still a little bit left over because when I remember very well when they attempted to blow up Frank Rosenthal and his car was sitting over at Tony Roma's on Sahara, and I was in high school and we were all going by to see the car and you could smell the fuel from when they tried to blow him up. And also when I was at Cinema Services, we did the Frank Rosenthal show at the Stardust. Terry O'Connor, who worked for us, a really great stagehand, we would set up the show and Frank Rosenthal would do his show and then we would have to take it down all in one day.
But that was the business. That's our life. Hey, Barbara, believe it or not, that's the end of the first episode. This has been going
Boy,
great.
that is good. I talk too much.
No, you don't. But anyways, we're going to be back and we're going to send this bumper out real quick and then we'll come back in just a minute and continue on. Like I say, it's live.
It's showtime. The Craig L. Hayes Show.